Daniel hadn't answered his phone in 3 days. Sadie called 6 times, left 4 voicemails, texted everything from "Where are you?" to "Please just say you're alive." Jacob drove to his apartment and found the mailbox full, the porch light off, and a fresh lock on the door. The landlord hadn't seen him in over a week. Daniel had vanished in a way that didn't feel accidental. It felt planned. Sadie didn't sleep the night she got the text. It came from an unknown number with no name, just a photo of an old, rusted box. The caption read, "Ask Dad about June." The next morning, she drove to the house without telling anyone. Leonard was in the backyard, hunched over a pile of wet leaves, raking like it was the only thing keeping him breathing. Sadie walked past him, straight through the house and into her parents' room. She didn't knock, she didn't hesitate. She opened every drawer, every cabinet, the closet, the lockbox hidden beneath the bottom dresser panel. Nothing new, nothing she hadn't already seen. Then she went to the basement. The steel door at the far end of the utility wall was still unlocked from the last time. The air was colder this time. She didn't bother turning on the lights. Her hands knew where to go now. She pulled open the drawer labeled Archive A, Cases Withdrawn, and found a folder marked JM 1989. Inside was a photograph of 3 women, 2 identical, 1 younger. The handwriting on the back was in Evelyn's script. Nora, June, me, 1985. Sadie stared at the photo until it stopped making sense. If that was Evelyn in the picture, then who was the woman she called Mom? And if the woman in the casket wasn't Evelyn, but June, then what had happened to the real Evelyn? Or Nora, for that matter? The box Daniel had found weeks ago in the attic suddenly took on a new shape in her memory. The photos, the bracelet, the missing names. She brought the photo upstairs and set it on the kitchen table. Jacob arrived a few minutes later carrying 2 manila envelopes and an old thumb drive. He didn't say where he got them. Sadie didn't ask. They sat across from each other in silence until Jacob finally broke it. There was another record, a sealed one, not about Daniel, about Evelyn, the real Evelyn. She'd been placed in a psychiatric hospital in 1990 under a different name. Released 6 months later, then she disappeared. The photo Sadie found in the basement had been used in a missing persons report. It was filed by Nora. Case was closed without resolution. June Miller had changed her name and re-entered public life as Evelyn Monroe, married Leonard, raised Sadie, Jacob, and Daniel. It meant the woman they buried wasn't their mother. She was someone pretending to be. Jacob admitted he remembered June, remembered 2 women showing up at the house when he was very young, one crying, one silent. He didn't know what happened, only that afterward, Evelyn's name was never spoken again. He told Sadie he'd once overheard Leonard say, "This one won't run." He hadn't understood it then. He did now. Daniel reappeared the next morning. The call came from a hospital 2 counties over. He'd checked himself in under the name Derek Simmons, claimed he was being watched, said he saw someone who had died. The intake report noted he was malnourished, dehydrated, and had scratch marks on his arms. Sadie and Jacob drove down immediately. They weren't allowed to speak to him until the doctor cleared it. They waited 5 hours. When Sadie finally saw him, Daniel looked smaller than she remembered. Pale, twitchy, blinking too fast. He wouldn't look her in the eye. She said his name 3 times before he finally whispered, "You were never supposed to know this." Then he asked for a priest. Not a therapist, not a lawyer. A priest. He wouldn't say why. On the drive home, Jacob said he remembered something else. A name. A girl. Claire Devon. She'd been 14 when she went missing from the neighborhood. Daniel was 13. The 2 of them used to play in the woods behind the house. Claire was the one who wrote the diary, the one Jacob found in Daniel's backpack. Jacob had given it to Leonard, thinking their father would help. But Leonard burned it, said it would ruin Daniel's future, said it was all lies. And Jacob had believed him. Sadie didn't say anything. She just stared out the window as trees blurred by, her thoughts spiraling into places that didn't have light. When they got home, the house felt colder, quieter. Leonard wasn't there. His car was gone, his phone rang twice, then voicemail. Jacob checked the study. The files were untouched. The desk drawer was empty, the cabinet that used to hold the sealed folders had been gutted. Every document was gone, but the photograph was still there, the one of the 3 women. On the back, a new line had been added, scratched in angry ink. "You were never supposed to be part of this." That night, Sadie found something she didn't expect. An envelope slid under her motel room door. No return address. Inside was a photocopy of a birth certificate. Her name, her birth date, but not Evelyn as her mother. It said, Mother Nora June Miller. Father, unknown. Jacob looked at it, then looked at her. The silence between them was full of things neither wanted to say out loud. It meant she wasn't Leonard's daughter. It meant Evelyn, the woman who raised her, wasn't her mother. It meant everything she thought she knew about where she came from was a lie. Jacob asked if she wanted to keep digging. She didn't answer. Instead, she called Daniel's hospital, asked if he'd spoken. The nurse said he hadn't, but he'd asked for one thing: a recorder. Sadie sat on the edge of her bed for hours, wondering what he planned to say, wondering who he would name, wondering what the truth would cost if they finally let it out. She didn't realize until she looked at the photocopy again that the hospital's name was wrong. It didn't match the hospital where she'd been told she was born. The certificate listed a private clinic that had shut down in 1991, a place with no digital records, no online footprint, just a name: Pinehurst Center for Women. Sadie Googled it. Nothing came up, but she remembered the lake, Lake Crescent, the one where the car was pulled. The police said there were foundations near the water, ruins from old clinics destroyed by fire decades ago. She checked again. Pinehurst had been located 2 miles from the north end of the lake. She called Jacob, told him we were going back, not to find closure, but to find whatever was left of the beginning. Jacob didn't speak the entire drive to Lake Crescent. Sadie sat beside him, clutching the photo and the birth certificate in her lap like they were maps to something buried. They didn't play music, didn't talk about what they were hoping to find. The only sound was the tires on the wet road and the kind of silence that only exists between siblings who've run out of ways to protect each other. The lake looked different this time. No longer a place where secrets were kept, but a place where they rose. The trees leaned in, the fog sat low. Sadie parked near the dirt path that wound along the edge and followed her gut. 2 miles. That's what the old article had said. 2 miles from the north end of the lake sat the ruins of the Pinehurst Center for Women. It had burned down in 1991. The cause was never officially declared. Some said faulty wiring, others said it was an accident. One article suggested arson. None mentioned Nora Miller, none mentioned Evelyn, and none mentioned the Sadie Monroe name. It took them 40 minutes on foot to find it. The structure had been reduced to stone walls and broken metal frames. A crumbled staircase led to nowhere. Graffiti covered most of the surfaces. Someone had scrawled, "God doesn't watch here," in red paint across what looked like the old front entrance. They stepped carefully through the wreckage. Jacob found what looked like a file cabinet, rusted and half buried in dirt. Sadie found a piece of glass etched with patient numbers. Most of it was rubble. But near the back, under a beam split in 2, they found a scorched safe the size of a small microwave. It took them 3 hours to break it open. Inside were 6 folders, brittle with age. The paper almost tore in their hands. One folder had Sadie's name, the other had June's, the third had Nora's. The fourth was unmarked. The last 2 were medical records, handwritten notes, photographs of sedated women, charts, blood work, psychiatric evaluations. A page clipped to the back of Sadie's file was a consent form, Nora's signature at the bottom, but someone had crossed it out in pencil. Underneath, the initials LM had been added in shaky writing. Leonard Monroe. Sadie stopped reading. She didn't have to see the rest. The files suggested that Nora hadn't willingly given Sadie up. She had been in Pinehurst, drugged, signed over, and somehow Leonard had found her baby, and taken both. Or maybe just the baby. They burned the folders, all of them, right there on the grass, using lighter fluid and a torn jacket. It felt like the only way to end whatever had started in that place. But Sadie kept one page, a photo. It was her as a newborn, eyes barely open, wrapped in a blue towel that looked too rough for a child. On the back, it said, June holding NSM, transferred 5/12/90. NSM. Nora Sadie Miller. The initials gutted her.